I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
This episode of Dubai Works is sponsored by STEP Conference 2023, the leading tech festival for emerging markets. The highly anticipated event will be returning to Dubai Internet City for its 11th edition on February 22nd and February 23rd, with a new retro-futuristic approach and experiences including one-on-one investor meetings, pitch competitions, workshops, keynotes, panels, debates, and so much more. Grab your tickets on www.dubai.stepconference.com. Another very busy week with lots going on in Dubai. We had the World Government Summit where Elon Musk spoke and a lot of leaders were in town. There was a number of events around the town. Samsung had an event, Shahid had an event. It's Ramadan planning. There's lots of conferences coming up. But this week we spoke to a fashion designer and someone who knows the industry really, really well. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week, we're joined by Deborah Henning, fashion guru and serial entrepreneur. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning.
Mentor and speaker also worked with renowned mass names in retail and fashion, including Alexander McQueen, Sass Bide, and Majid Al Futtaim. So today, we're going to talk all about Deborah Henning brand, your story, your background in the industry, the fashion industry in Dubai in general, and your plans for the future. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So we're friends from a long time ago, but I've always known you as a designer. So how did you get into it?
My design story started probably when I was about 15. I didn't know what to do in my GCSE at school, and the art teacher was like, why don't you do something fun that you love? I was like, all right, I'll make a dress or something, like one of those. And I did it, and it turned out well. And he's like, right, do it for your exam. Don't. I was going to change it to something else. And he was like, no, don't change it. Do it for your final exam so you can build upon that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So then I spent the next year developing and my GCSE, I got the A star or whatever I needed. And I was like, I might be all right at this actually.
That was in art?
That's in art, yeah. So he probably gave me the key to be like, do something that you love and enjoy it for the next year, while you do your art GCSE. And by the time I'd got to the end of that, I thought, actually, I really quite like this. Then I went to college and whatever. By the time I graduated college, I was like, okay, this is something that I can definitely, I have a passion for it and I love to create. So I went to uni. I graduated from uni with my degree, first class honours degree. And then, of course, naive and the character that I am, I was like, I'm going to start a business. So pretty much not far out of uni, I did work at Alexander McQueen and I did go to Sass Bide in Sydney. So I did have some experience under my belt, but literally it wasn't very much. And I was like, right, I'm going to start a brand. And off I went and I got a little bit of investment and pounded onto the streets of London with my, designs and that's where it started. Yeah.
Wow. And so I described at the start, but so what do you do today? What is it now?
So today I still run my fashion label. So it's 18 years ongoing. Deborah Henning is the label. And I have recently started a consultancy. Well, I say recently, it's 7 years in now, but I've been working for other brands, designing and developing for them. And more recently, it's kind of turned into nurturing other entrepreneurs and startups to help them on their way, because I know how difficult it is and I know what it takes, and it takes a lot. So to build a brand, how do you build a brand? How do you do it? How do you get from A to B without taking 20 years to do it, basically.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So much to unpack there. But I think let's take them one by one. So Deborah Henning, the brand, how, can you walk through what your journey was like from when you said on the streets of London, what is the industry like? Do you get involved in all the fashion weeks? Are you on this deadline of having to release new catalogs and everything all the time?
Yeah, it's brutal, especially as a startup. I was really young as well. I was like 20, 21 when I started my brand. So, I kind of set out with a little bit of capital, and I just kind of I just kind of thought, I'm just going to make beautiful clothes and see what happens. And I did get into On Off, which is an off-schedule show at London Fashion Week, which was, again, like looking back, really good. I got interviewed by Vogue, and like I did not have a clue what I was talking about, and I made so many mistakes. I was just so young and green, Then I got into a store on Carnaby Street, Kingley Court. They actually gave us the store to use, and it was on the Metro newspaper, and all these things that are like incredible things for a young brand to happen. But I was just so like determined. I was, I just had the fire, like I was going to do it, and I was going to, be out there. And I did events with clients and private clients and all this type of stuff. But it is brutal. It's like a really hard industry to break into, especially when you've not got a team, and especially when you've not got any funding behind you. Like, I'm talking about funding. I had I think £20,000 or something like that. And that lasted me like 5 years as well. So it didn't really... I didn't use it for marketing and that type of thing. I used it to produce the product and try and make my way and develop my name, So, yeah. And then when I got the opportunity to move to Dubai, I took a break actually, because I was like, this is a whole new world. Like, I don't know what's going on in the Middle East. I didn't have a clue about Dubai. So I took my time, developed I kind of grew up a bit in those couple of years, like I just took a couple of years off, and I was like, right, what is it that I love to do? What am I going to build? What am I going to grow? And I really sculpted that aesthetic, that identity that I really want to develop into a brand that I can keep forever. I think my brand in London was a bit like young. It was lots of colours and prints, and it's not something that I would particularly wear anymore.
What were you making? Was it dresses?
Singles and dresses and stuff like that, but it was a lot more evening wear type thing. Today, the brand is minimalist. It's lots of black, whites, greys, tans, things you can actually wear. It's luxury day wear, and then you can just put on heels and wear it at night time. But it's that lovely kind of considered design that is, that's different. That's a little bit something different, but she's wearing it in the day and it's beautiful quality. It's that kind of balance between those two things. And I think that's resonated a lot with customers, because that's, in today's day and age, people want things that are beautiful to wear, they feel nice in them, and they last a really long time. Like, a lot of my clients come back and I've still got that from 10 years ago, I've still got that from 7 years ago. Okay. And they love the quality of it. So I've loved building that kind of, those pillars into the brand to make sure it's really like something that people enjoy wearing.
Has it changed? Probably has, as much as the output has changed in what people can buy and how it looks, but has it changed from a business point of view in how you manufacture, how you source your materials, and your distribution, where your brand is available? How has that changed over the years? I
mean, essentially, it's still fundamentally the same type of process in that, you have wholesale clients where obviously you have to mark up to a certain extent so you can sell to B2B. I sell B2B.
What does B2B mean in
the business to business? So I can sell like to Harvey Nichols, or I can sell, and they have different ways to sell to them, whether it's consignment or whether they buy wholesale or things like that.
And do they buy, you're an independent brand, and they buy independent brands like that? That's normally how they work? Well,
in the glory days, that's how they worked. Like I had a meeting with a store a couple of days ago that's in London, and they're asking now for fees to be in the store plus a percentage of the sales. So back in my day, a buyer would come and they'd be like, I love the collection, I want to buy this. I'll have 50 of those, 30 of those, 20 of those. And you'd have that cash flow in the business to be able to then produce that collection for them and for 4 other stores or whatever, and you have that cash flow. You'd have 50% of that money, and then you'd ship it to them, they would pay you, and then you'd have that money for next season. That's how it worked, and it was fabulous because the designers weren't the ones taking all the hit for everything. It was like, no, we believe in your brand, we're going to pay you to make it, to put it in our store. Whereas now it's like you're paying them their rent and you're giving them 30%. And if it doesn't sell, you get it all back. And it's like, you have to hold the stock. You're the one that's putting up all the risk. And it's like, when did this shift happen? And so It's really quite hard for new brands starting today that especially in this region. Like, I'm not sure. I think obviously when you do trade shows in France and London and New York, I'm sure people are still buying wholesale, and that kind of traditional method is still prevalent. But there is a lot of brands, especially up and coming stores, that kind of say, well, can we have it for free? We'll try and sell it for you. And that puts a lot of pressure.
Amazing, interesting. But so in Dubai, how long has your brand been available in Dubai?
Since 2014.
Okay, and the manufacturing process, so how you produce what you do, has that changed in this region?
No, for me, no, because I was lucky enough to find a factory that would produce small amounts for me, because that's another massive problem that a lot of young brands have, is that they've got an option of going to Satwa and getting clothes made, and it's not very good, or trying to do it overseas, and then you need to do 300 minimum of one style. And imagine, you need a collection of 15 pieces, 20 pieces times 300, that's a lot of stock. That's a lot of outlay. Like, you need $20,000 to be able to do that. And not a lot of brands do. So then they have to compromise on like, okay, I'm going to make it with this small tailor can make 5 for me, but the quality's not there. It's like, yeah, and you really have to be lucky to find someone. So when I started out, I did loads of research into factories, and I actually found one that do massive brands in the UK, and she just happened to be English and like the brand. And she just followed my enthusiasm for it and said, yeah, I'll help you, I'll back you, and we'll grow with you type thing. So I was lucky enough to...
So she's a tailor, she has a small factory in the UK, and she's still, all the years...
She's here, actually.
She's here.
But she's British, yeah. And they can run out 50,000 pieces a day, so they're pretty big.
And they make it in UAE, in Dubai.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of... I'm trying to put the pieces together. So you're the brains, you're the designer, you still draw the dresses. Yeah. You've got this amazing partner here who produces it for you.
Yeah.
And then you go into the stores, and that's the flow.
Basically, yeah. So I'm doing all the creative direction in that I'm deciding what the brand look and feels and colours and palettes and shapes and all that stuff. I have a team that help me do that, because it's a lot. Also, you need to bash the ideas around, right? You need to kind of generate. Then production is with the factory. Again, I oversee that and I quality control everything myself. And then it comes back to me ready to go. And then I deal with contacting the stores and getting in stores, getting into magazines, speaking to clients, the flow of customer events, things like that. It's all back to me.
Is it? I know we'll get into the other things that you're doing, but I'm trying. I hear stories of like Victoria Beckham and how it's a struggle to make a business out of this stuff.
Yeah.
Is it possible if you run it well? Is it possible to make margins?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. But you have to. There is a way to kind of get it right, I suppose. And I feel like all the elements need to be in the right place. People like Victoria Beckham, I'm pretty sure have massive teams. Like, I don't know how many she's got on her team, but I'm sure there's a way to scale that back and make it work. I'm sure that their PR and marketing budget is ginormous. So to even cover those costs, I'm sure they have to turn over a fair amount of money, But if you're a smaller brand, you can manage that. There's a very small tipping point between, breaking even and actually making money. But the profit margin is good if you do it right. And that's why, I work with a lot of brands, because it's like, how do you get it right? How do you, and it's not just fashion brands, it's like any brand. How do you build that need for something? How do you get someone to buy into your company without knowing you that well, because you're a new company? Grow that customer, like they really feel like they're part of the company, and at the same time offer a product that you can make money on and make a living out of, and then once you've got that money, where do you put it, where do you invest it back, and how do you grow? And I could talk all day about what that entails, but I think when you're starting out, there's just so much, even just the basics of like you said, like producing fabrics and designing and developing and drawing. Like, drawing's a thing on its own. Like, what do you do? Do you draw it yourself? You have to communicate that with a factory. Like, all these small things. Forget about like sales and marketing and profit margins and cash flow. It's like, so.
But on the sales and marketing side, because we see a lot of the fashion industry. We see all these fashion weeks and then dresses for celebrities and gala events and things like that. Is that costly to play part of that industry? Is that where expense can get eaten up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fashion weeks in themselves, the shows are super expensive, but brands can go. So actually, London Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week is actually a trade show. So attached to these shows there is a place where buyers can go into a massive hall, and there's lots of little stands of all the brands showing, all the brands. So you can buy a stand there. So you can be, someone can be on the runway, Balenciaga can be on the runway, and you can be in the trade show. So technically the people that are going to the trade show to watch the shows could pass by your brand, So it's the right place to be. But yeah, that costs money. It's not that those types of trade shows aren't hugely costly, but it is costly in that you have to consistently be there. So you need to be there twice a year or at least once a year for a couple of years to build that kind of.
And what's your strategy for that?
You just need to show up.
Yeah.
You've got to, if you're going to do it, you need to commit. So decide which fashion week's for you. So there's different ones lean better to different types of brands, and then have a budget to be there for at least 3 seasons, 4 seasons, 5 seasons, so that when the buyers come, they go, oh, I saw her last time. Because if you remember, and as you well know, people need to see you like 8, 9, 10 times before they would buy into your product, even if it's, on an email and then at a trade show and then you get sent something. A buyer's not just going to be like, yeah, here's my money. You have to be present and you have to reiterate that brand story over and over and over again. Then you have to be, sell the brand also. And then it has to be a nice product. So there's a lot to kind of take in and work around. And at the same time, you need to be consistent.
Interesting. So when you're working with other brands, because what's needed for your brand. And in this region, in the last, say, 10 years, we've seen a lot more sort of, like in every industry, we've seen a lot more entrepreneurship and people trying things out. When you say the consultancy part, is it with new emerging apparel fashion brands, or is it with designers wanting to start out a career, or who are you kind of working with?
So up to date, I've been doing brands that are starting up. I've actually, before that, I worked with a lot of massive retailers. I did a lot of work for them, like developing their uniforms and all these types of things. But I'm moving more towards working with startups because I just find it like, I love to build, I think in my past life I might have been a builder, but I love to build and grow and see things moving. So it really excites me when I work with a brand that has got lots of potential and we're working together and we can see movement. And I can put my expertise in place to help them do that quicker than I did it, for example.
Does any categories particular, or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. Like I'm actually just starting to work with a supplement brand that's doing excellently well in the UK, and they want to break into the Middle East. So now I'm working with them to develop their product in the Middle East and get it in here and logistically get it on the ground in the Middle East. So there's lots of different like ways that I can work, because essentially if you've got a brand, it's a brand. It doesn't matter whether you're selling supplements or underwear or fashion. It's all the same, you know. So any brand we can work with to help it grow, basically.
And so how do you divide your time now between the different things? $1 million question.
That is a tough one. I try to be 50-50, but it's not always the way. The consultancy takes a lot more of my time just because I have more demand of more people asking me to do stuff. And the brand I'm kind of moving into maybe an investment type of area. So I'm kind of in talks about how to grow that with other people, because I can't do it alone. Like I really do need someone to take that baby and like grow it into something else that's bigger than me,
Yeah, interesting. So 50-50, but if you're doing the consultancy, it's service based, so it's your hours and your time, and especially with those type of companies, there's a lot of effort needed in the building phase, isn't there?
Yeah, what I love about that though is I can consult. So when I was working before, like with Majid Al Futtaim, for example, we had a huge project to design and develop for them, to do these uniform projects. And that lasted 5 years. And that was a lot of on the ground, like physically, like, working with the collections, working with the business units. We did 18 business units for them across the Gulf. So we were busy. And that just took all of our time. Whereas now with the young brands that are coming, or the medium weight brands that are already got something, they've already built, they're already there. They just need me to say, all right, this is what you need to do next. So actually it's a lot easier on my time because they're doing it. It's their business. I'm just saying, all right, this will be quicker than this. I've tried this before, this didn't work, maybe this is better. Like that type of stuff. It's a lot more direct consulting. So and then they go off and they do it. And then they come back and they're like, right, we did it, now what? So that actually is a lot less on my time because I can see a lot more brands in a short space of time.
And, when people speak to you like I am now, they'll understand what you know in the industry, and you've been in it for a couple of decades, and, you've been around, you know what you're doing. But do you then change how you're positioning? Is it Deborah Henning, the brand, and then Deborah Henning, the consultancy? Yeah. And does the business structure change? Even licensing and things like that. Yeah,
it does actually, because you're selling a product. It's a bit of a tricky one. I see why it kind of get a little bit confusing, I suppose, but I kind of utilize the fact that I've got this brand and I've built it and it's there. And what I've done more recently is separate the two completely. So before it was all mingled up into one website and whatever. And now we're 7 years into the consultancy. I was like, maybe we should have its own website. So this week, literally, I split it and I was like, right, let's make it very clear that this is my brand. This is a company. Let's move towards investment for this company so that it can generate its own team and work separately and become a brand identity within itself. Yeah. And I am the consultancy side of things, where it's like, if you want this, this wealth of knowledge, then this is where you come. And you can access that via online courses or one-to-one or...
Exactly. It can, once you kind of break that out, it can go so many places.
It can, yeah.
When you mentioned supplements, I didn't even think of that. But then, in designing, there's apparel, or there's fashion design, there's high end, there's retail, there's
so much, yeah.
And then there's interior, and there's homes, and there's commercial, and there's just so much.
It's just anyone with a brand, basically. Anyone that has a brand needs to have these things in place so that to make sure that they're in the right direction and not faffing around. I kind of wish I'd had that kind of direction when I was starting out. Okay, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to build it cohesively, coherently, and be consistent. I just took the long, I didn't have that, unfortunately. So I feel like that's probably my why, is that it's me 20 years ago going, oh my God, what do I do? And someone that's super passionate and that really wants to make it work and really wants to do this as a business, and just needs a little bit of guidance and support to get them to the next phase, really.
And what about, we heard a recent announcement that the Dubai Fashion Week is now on the official circuit. So it's kind of up there with Milan, with Paris, with New York and London. Do you think that changes the industry, gives it more credibility here? Yeah,
I mean, it's growing. Let's see. It'll be interesting, but I think it'll take time. I mean, I don't know yet what you'd have to go to see what's going to happen with those types of events, but you would want the buyers from Bloomingdale's, Harvey Nichols, like Galeries Lafayette, these places go into Dubai Fashion Week instead of France, Paris and London and New York. Whether they will or not, I don't know. Time will tell. And
in the way that you described it is that, if they did, and if they found a Dubai-based designer, then that's that entity, that person's route to these stores globally. So export business, basically. Yeah, absolutely. It would depend. Here they have Bloomingdale's and Harvey Nichols, so it might be a local regional thing immediately, which would be good. But then obviously, they have connections with everybody else, right? So you would want, really, ideally, you'd want the whole region coming into Dubai for that. But, it takes time. I'm not sure that just having a fashion week is enough. It needs to garner that trust and respect that maybe we need to work on a little bit, And what about, what about the industry in general in terms of globally? Like, a lot of other people are using Dubai as their base for global. In the last 10 years, have you seen a lot more designers and fashion-based people being based out of Dubai? Yeah, my goodness. When I came here 13 years ago, is it 13? I think it's around 13. There was no one. There was a handful of designers. They were all evening wear designers. Now there's so many. There's so many brands, so many cool brands, things that have developed out of Dubai. There's a lot more people building small businesses, even homegrown ones, that you see at Right Market and stuff like that. People trying it out and giving it a go. And some of these businesses, they've gone from strength to strength. We have, I was doing like you just mentioned before, we were talking Market OTB. It's where I started out, basically. Yeah. Doing market, outdoor events. And I started with a brand that was right next to me called Draw Deck, and we got to know them. You might know them. Yeah. And they're smashing it. They're they've got, now obviously they don't do events in fields anymore. They've got, corporate
accounts, and it's not just online. You know, they've built it. They've really scaled it very well, and they've very cleverly, and they seem to be absolutely smashing it. And it's lovely to see brands like that growing out of, we're going to give this a go and see, you know, this is what we're passionate about, and then they end up, you know, really good companies that are doing good work.
Dubai can do that. But also, do you see more appetite amongst investors with the brands that you work with than there was 10 years ago? Is there more money going around? Is there more knowledge of like what investing in a product or a fashion brand in the region can do?
There's definitely more conversation about it. Again, like when I started, there was nothing really, you know, there was no co-working hubs or anything like that. There was not really anything like all the things I was used to in the UK, being these networking events where you might potentially get in front of an investor. Didn't exist when I came. So like, you know, and then there's things like Endeavour that are there just purely for growth. There's a lot of really cool things. If you've got a product and that you really believe in and that is a really good product, you can make it quickly in this region. I would say quicker than you could at home. Yeah,
it's interesting. Like, because we know about the startup space and the VCs and the angels and all that, but in this industry, we don't know as many. Like, I'm thinking of success stories, right? There's Huda Beauty, that brand. I think yesterday was their 10-year anniversary or something. I might have that wrong, but there was something, you know, a milestone that was passed. And what they did is they were so successful, they set up an investment entity that tries to do similar. So that must be good for the ecosystem.
Yeah. Amazing. Like how amazing is that? And that's because, you know, she's built that company herself and understands what it takes, and then is still at the heart of that business and can then say, right, this is valuable. I can pass this on to other people. You know, it's not dissimilar to what I'm doing, maybe on a smaller scale. But, like,
but you know, did you ever consider, because it was interesting when you were talking about the supply chain and the B2B, I guess your brand was a little bit more high end, but you know, this term digital native vertical brand where people go direct to consumer, was that something that you considered, and are you doing that now are you advising people how to take that route?
Direct to consumer instead of, absolutely. You have to have your own e-commerce. You really have to be direct to consumer, and you can make, obviously your margin becomes a lot bigger, but you still need to be able to sell. Well, I mean, for me anyway, I feel like those routes still need to be open. So a lot of problem that I see with the young brands is that, like I had a meeting the other day with another brand from the UK that wants to break in here, and her margin's only built for her to sell directly to consumer. And I'm like, that's great, and it means that the consumer's getting a real priced product, but she can't sell into store because there's no margin for the store to be able to get involved. So you have to kind of think, right, that needs to be in the strategy of what am I going to do? Am I going to just be direct to consumer, in which case you can make your margin and the customer gets a really good product, not so highly marked up? Or do you want to be in retail, in which case you need to build that in?
That's so interesting when you put it like that. Like if you start out one way, it's almost hard to allow the other door to open.
Yeah. And then you don't have the strategy. So that's really something that's one of the keys that I put in place is pricing of like, right, well, what's the end goal here? Because if you're going to be online only and you're going to just sell direct to consumer, then we need to, in that price point that you're going to have, we need a massive marketing budget for online digital. Like we need to have X amount built in every month to spend.
Like what you would be given as the cut to
absolutely,
you need to bake that in, otherwise the margins aren't real.
Absolutely. And then you see that direct growth for your business rather than giving it to somebody else. You know, one of the great things for me for PR was when I was in Harvey Nichols. So it's not like it does your brand good service to be in companies like that, to be placed on the floor of Harvey Nichols. It's amazing. If I'd have just gone direct to consumer and used that capital to put it into digital and grow the brand in itself, who knows? I don't know like what would be a better outcome. It's hard to know, right? But the best case scenario is that you can do both.
Yeah. But
that's where you need real capital to be able to do it.
And like I think other people in other industries can relate. Like some people say in the restaurant business that the delivery apps that they're taking that X percent. Then you know, if they had their own app. But as you said, it's kind of you know, you need to do both. But the other thing that you could do, as well as the distributor, as well as e-commerce direct to consumers, have your own bricks and mortar, have your own store. Did you ever look at that?
Expense.
Yeah, you've done the markets.
Yeah.
But did you cost it? Like, it needs investment, right?
Of course, because you need to be able to rent that space and deck it out and do the interior design. And then you have to have people standing there like a long, retail in Dubai it's open really a long time. Like how many hours a day is retail open?
Yeah.
Like that, you need to be able to, have a runway of like, I don't know, maybe 5 years of how that is going to work out and not many brands have that. So then we have to find out how we're going to get in front of the eyes of the customer online, in face, and possibly with a small showroom or something like that without being... Yeah. Or we negotiate with, Majid Al Futtaim, see what we can get.
Yeah, there's very few, obviously, who do it independently. Like when you go to the stores, the brands are different, but they're all owned by one apparel group or whatever. So they can sort of cover it that way, right?
Well, how Majid Al Futtaim works is they have like the umbrella, and then underneath they own so they own like Carrefour and Vox. And it's a company that's owned within the Majid Al Futtaim. So of course they're going to give them floor space because it's their company. I don't know if it's a franchise. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's a Majid Al Futtaim brand. So if you go to any of their malls, you're going to see all their brands plus whoever else can afford to be in there. So that's
but in general, your view is that like even though there's a big digital world, it is good to have that physical presence, whether it's B2B on the shop floor, Harvey Nichols, whether it's some sort of exposure that's definitely needed in fashion.
Absolutely, like depending on your strategy, there are brands that are all online. Absolutely, but like I said, you need to be able to have that backup of continual online marketing strategy and how that's going to go and how it's going to grow. In my personal experience, like a brand that I've just worked with at the moment, they have just launched online. They launched a product, they launched online. People are interested in it. We can look at the data and say, people are clicking on this, this, and this. But the reality is they're also going to want to touch it because it is a new brand, so they don't know it. So if she had a placement in Harvey Nichols or Bloomingdale's or Galeries Lafayette or anywhere like that, people might go and buy it from there for the first time, and then after that, they will buy it online, which is what I saw with my brand. Once people had touched it and felt it and knew what their size was, they were like, cool, I'll buy online. So like 80% of my sales were from people that I already had sold to at some point at an event or in store or something like that. Yeah. Because as a new brand, you need to have that touch point. People need to know. Even me when I'm shopping, like, the first thing I always do, this is nice. What do? I go to the composition of the fabric because I need to know. Because I know if I see viscose or I see cotton or I see, I can tell what I'm going to get. Like if it's 100% polyester, I'm like, okay, this looks amazing on the model, but I know that when I receive it, I'm not going to be happy with it, so I don't bother. Whereas I see other brands and I see the composition, I'm like, oh, this is going to be really nice.
What's good? What should we be looking out for?
Well, naturals instead of synthetics is always a good start. Like if you're going to go polyester, down the route polyester, it's synthetic, it's cheaper to produce and probably shinier. And, there's some really good like man-made ones like viscose and stuff that can look beautiful. But then obviously if you're going for your silks and your cashmeres and your wools and your cottons and things like that, it's always going to be better quality. It's always going to look and feel more beautiful. Interesting.
Good to know. Never look at those materials. But
well, if you're shopping online, it's a good way. It's a good like marker to see like if you're going to buy a shirt and it's 100% polyester, and then you go onto another brand and it's 100% cotton, you're going to be like, probably going to be that one that's better, the cotton version.
Okay, interesting. And Deborah, what else are the trends now? I want to talk about sustainability in a second, but in terms of, what consumers are buying, like during the pandemic, we saw a lot of athleisure. We saw, people didn't think they'd be wearing suits again. Then that changed. But like, do you see different trends in what people are buying, like in stores and just in general in fashion?
It always goes with that wave, doesn't it? Like, I don't know if you've seen the 90s trend that's hit recently. Oh my goodness. I remember it the first time round. So I'm like completely cringe. I was in a store the other day and this lady was like, what about these, madame? She pulled out these cargo pants and I was like, oh my God. Like I literally wore those. I was like, no, sorry, I'm too old for that. And she's like, no, don't be silly. No, literally, I wore those the first time round. I cannot wear those. So yeah, there's always like, the continual trends. Right now we have the double denim. Everything's denim. Everyone wants to wear denim on top, denim on bottom. And it's very like 90s. It's got such a 90s like grungy feel to it.
And the people who didn't see it the first time think it's cool.
They're all like, "Oh wow!" Like I was,
and we're kind of
oh God, like I can't, it's very like Spice Girls kind of. I'm just like, oh no. And again, it's a continual cycle that's led by the brands that are showing it at fashion weeks and stuff like that, and then they, the online will pick out the magazines and things like that will pick out, the editors will pick out, okay, for this season, the colour is cobalt blue. And then, you'll see that trickle down into the Zara's and the Massimo Duttis and things like that. You'll see the cobalt blue that was on the runway. It's a lot quicker now. That runway is a lot shorter in terms of time. So it used to be like 6 months, you'd see it on the runway, 6 months later it'd be in the store. Whereas now it's just like bam, bam, bam. Like
that window is
it's just
shorter.
so much shorter. Like people like Zara have things from the runway, colours, shapes within like 6 weeks. It's just bonkers, and then you also have to then as a young business factor that in. So yeah, that's why I don't generally follow any major trends with my brand, because it just adds a level of pressure. Yeah. And also you can't compete with like people like, that are smashing out 8, 10, 12, 24 collections a year. Like how can you compete with it?
Yeah, so, that Chinese, is it Chinese fashion brand Shein?
Shein, yeah.
And aren't they known for being able to almost create a product based on searches, even though it's not already made? So they literally react to the demand.
Yes, yeah. And that is like, wow, that is impressive, no? Like, look, like, that's probably where it's going, actually, like, much more towards the data of what people want. And when you touch on sustainability, maybe it's better, because if we just look at the data and the demand of what people actually want and only create products that are going to be sold and worn and used, rather than this kind of old school way, which is build your collection, make it all, sell it out. It's like, it's not sustainable.
It's a lot of waste. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of waste. Yeah.
But fast fashion is definitely still dominant.
Oh my God. And it's detrimental also, because it's just churn. Like Shein, the way they're doing it, if they're just doing it on demand only, that could be really interesting. It could be a way to avoid that. But most of the models are smash it out, hundreds of thousands, and what doesn't sell gets burnt or whatever it is they do. I'm not sure exactly what they do with it, but it's just churn, man, hundreds of thousands.
Interesting.
Waste, yeah.
And so what are you excited about this year, and what are you working on? Moment.
I'm excited to potentially take the brand out open for investors and try to build that out. There's been discussions about making it into more of a lifestyle brand, so extra products in there.
Nice.
Not just women's wear, that would be amazing. And then the consultancy side. So yeah, only recently we've kind of opened up that consultancy side to younger businesses, the ones that are either just starting out, where I have built an online course. So that is specifically for fashion designers, but I'm building a second version, which is just for brands, that just to make sure they've got all those like fundamentals in place to make sure they're doing the really good stuff right first before they go on to try and grow.
How does that technically work? Are you making videos? Is it like a masterclass? Are people signing up?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So the fashion one's already built. I'm just in the middle of doing the second one now for other brands, any type of brand. And they're online. And so what I've done on my new website is I've got 3 platforms. I've got Launch, Grow, and Thrive. So the Launch platform is obviously launching at people that are wanting to start out, don't know where to start. A really accessible, easy way to do it is to download, or you don't download it, but you watch online step by step my 18 years of experience that I've plowed into this course. The second one, which is coming out probably in about a month, is going to be for any type of brand that needs to launch or is already launched actually, and needs those really good things in place that maybe I didn't do 18 years ago that I wish I had done, that are more updated 2023 version of like, what do you need to do as a brand in today's day and age in this country and internationally to make an impact and to make a brand that's going to stick and going to work and make you money. Because at the end of the day, I have so many brands come to me and they're like, I want, this is what I want. And they're like, yeah, but is it making you money though? Like, is this a hobby or is this a business? Like they just want to do like fun stuff. And I'm like, well, that's great, but look at your bottom line. Like we need to make this make money. Otherwise this is going to be dead in the water, like let's rejig and make sure that this is making money. So, yeah. So that's the launch element.
So you're working with designers, and then that's open to brands as well. And, do you sign up a cohort of people to take it at a certain time, or is it always on?
Yeah. Yeah, so what I'm doing, there's two that are going to be online are just going to be there for anyone who wants to do it at their own pace. But as and when I am going to do a strip release one, which will have me live also, because it depends on the feedback of the data that comes through. But I think I'm going to do it as a 6-week course that's drip feed every week, and then you get a one-to-one with me on live as well, so that you get to ask questions that are specifically for your business as well.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. And beyond that, beyond what you're doing with your brand and with your business, what's your view on the region? You know Dubai well. Like, do you think we're in a good time, and you look at kind of expansion across the region?
I'd love to, yeah. I mean, with the brand, what I'd like to do with the brand is, like I said, like grow it into more of a lifestyle brand. And of course, expansion across the region is, like everyone would love that. With the helping other brands and the consultancy, I really would like to work with Saudi, because I just think that there's so much movement there at the moment. There's so many exciting things happening. I know that the Chamber of Commerce are like really putting some effort in. I'm seeing things happen. I'm like, oh, this is Dubai, like kind of a few years ago, like they're starting to put the things in place, stoking the fire of getting some entrepreneur, movement. So I really would. I'm sure there's plenty of talent there that we've not seen yet, that's not had that platform of help that I could really help with. So yeah, Dubai will always be like the first place that I'll work, but I would like to work across the region. Yeah.
And just interesting. So when you work with young brands, and they're sort of maybe haven't taken investment, or they're bootstrapping it or whatever. Do you ever do equity as a form of payment in terms of?
That's something that's come up recently, actually. Yeah, it's something that's also in discussion. It's not a no. So yeah, maybe it's just something that's on the table at the minute. Yeah.
Because like when you look at how famous sports people generated extra revenue, that's the type of deals that they did, rather than just the sponsorship deal, like people like Roger Federer, LeBron James, and people like that. And like, I just think in terms of the consultancy piece, that if you're helping the brands grow, and if there's a big opportunity in the region, then, maybe that could be, obviously your services are valued, etc. But like that could be lucrative as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then it's a case of, does it light me on fire, the company, because.
And what would?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's it. It depends. Depends what comes in front of me, right? Yeah. I'm very passionate, and I'm super curious, and I love business and growth. So it depends what comes across my desk, really. But, yeah, I would. It depends if it's one of those personal things, right? Same with you. If you were going to invest in something, you have to feel it,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But is it broad? Like, the supplements thing is interesting, but like, is it anything kind of consumer lifestyle? What if it was a fitness check, anything?
Yeah. But any brand that's a brand that wants to grow, build, scale, that's what we do. And obviously my background is fashion, but it can be, we'll see what happens with the supplement brand, but they've got she's very switched on, very smart lady, and a very particular route. They just want to go completely online, and they need access to the region. So that's kind of, a little bit out of what I've done before, but doesn't mean we can't do it.
It's great. There's a lot of people that are looking to come to the region, which is exciting for everyone here.
Especially because, other markets are really struggling right now. And like, as you said, how's Dubai doing? I think it's doing all right. People are still buying. People are still, it's changing. So you have to be very aware of what's happening in the market and how those interactions with companies are, the B2B and all that type of stuff. It is changing. But it is more lucrative than the UK, for example. The UK is just like, at the moment,
That's a thumbs down.
We'll just wait for that one to catch up again at some point. Yeah.
Brilliant, Deborah. Really pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thanks
a lot. It's great to see how you've progressed into all these different areas, and good to catch up on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. That was really interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to our producers. The guys behind this podcast are Ali Khalil, Ali Baba, and Shahir Al-Kindi. Without them, they do everything in terms of the audio, the sound, the video, and the distribution. It's on smashy.tv. It's on all the apps. It's on Apple, Angami, Spotify, and you'll see articles on Lovin Dubai and different clips. This week it'll be on Smashy Style on Instagram, Smashy Business, and things like that. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Step Conference. The 11th edition is in Dubai next week. I'll be hosting a fireside chat with Chris Leacock, all about the music industry. He's done collabs with Beyonce. He's aka Gillionaire. That's at 10:15 on Wednesday the 22nd. So please, if you're at Step, do pass by. And we do have a big announcement that I'm waiting. I'll tell you guys next week to announce about Dubai Works Business Podcast, but we've got something cool coming up. So I'll tell you more about that next week. Enjoy the week and chat to you next week.